Good afternoon, and welcome to the 2022 Be Original America's Virtual Student Fellowship. Thank you for joining us. We're excited to be joined by Emeco for today's presentation. I'm happy now to introduce today's speakers, Emeco Chairman Gregg Buchbinder and Product Development Engineer Jaye Buchbinder. Today, they'll be exploring how Emeco navigates the industry, working with top industrial designers while maintaining the historical legacy of the brand and moving the needle on sustainable design. Welcome, Gregg and Jaye.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Ben.
We're really happy to be here, and as always, participating in the Be Original Americas. It's so great to be back, and it's such a good program.
Yeah, it's for us. It's something we always get a lot of feedback. So we'll be interested in hearing your questions and to be able to really address those things which are of interest to you.
Mm-hmm. So we wanted to talk today kind of about the Emeco True North, what guides Emeco, and what the answer to all the questions are, what thought process we come up with. It should be more of a conversation. So I'll ask Gregg questions to kind of guide his thought process, as he is really at the helm of Emeco. Here we go. So, the first thing is, for any company, it starts with the people who are behind it in terms of what drives the company. So talk a little bit about your personal values, and especially as it relates to environmentalism. Where does that come from?
Okay, so the name of this presentation is True North, and it's based on our own beliefs, our values, and we enjoy the environment. We surf, we spend time in it, we care about it. It's something that, when you go out and you surf and you're there with dolphins and pelicans, you really have a connection and you really want to see things taken care of.
Yeah, I think you can't avoid the changes in the environment when you're in it on a daily basis. So you started surfing pretty young.
Right.
Also, you had two parents in design since you were growing up.
Right.
So how did that impact your design sensibility?
Well, I grew up in Huntington Beach, and you have classes that are, ecology and things that maybe, growing up in California was a good thing to be exposed to those kind of things. And then coming home to a house that was all about, design, and just merging those two things, design and ecology, is sort of what I was weaned on and what I enjoy.
Awesome. So then, from there, talk a little bit about Emeco. How did the company start? And then also, when did you get involved?
Yeah. So the company started in 1944, and the reason was the Navy needed chairs that would hold up for the applications out at sea. So Emeco developed a chair that was all the things that were important. It had to be, worthy in salt water, and non-magnetic for the instruments, fireproof, and super strong so the sailors couldn't destroy it. And Emeco came up with the Navy chair. And the Navy chair, it's the bar that we always strive for. It's made of scrap aluminum, because at the time there wasn't enough aluminum to go around, so there were scrap drives, and Americans felt patriotic. And so we started the company based on using scrap and built a product that was designed to last 150 years.
Yeah, so at that point, when Emeco started, the True North values were durability, using waste material, and kind of a design that's way more function over like the fashion of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then when did you get involved, and what were the True Norths then?
Yeah, when I got involved, the company was really languishing. It was suffering because the Navy stopped buying chairs. The Cold War was over, and the business was about to fail. But the product was so good. And when I went to the factory and I saw what an incredible place it is. And you go through this workshop and it's got, all these specialized areas between, cutting and bending and welding and annealing and heat treating and anodizing. It's all these things under one roof, which gives the ability to do something that would be almost impossible to do if you tried to do it with multiple factories. So it had this incredible kind of structure that allowed us to do things and do new and different things. So when I took over, we had one chair and basically one customer. And there was a chance meeting I had with a designer. His name was Philippe Stark. You might have heard of him. And he always dreamed of doing an Emeco chair. And that was a big turning point for us.
You're getting a little bit ahead of where we are. So we're going to keep going and we're going to come back to this.
Okay.
So then, you're looking at Emeco and you have the very originals, shown here on the left-hand side are the navy upholstered, the re-envisioned. And what you're trying to do is maintain those original true norths as you evolve.
Right. So when you look at the left chair, that chair was designed in the 40s. It was for Navy officers, and it was for, the people that worked on land, and they wanted something a little bit more comfortable than the original hard aluminum chairs. Jasper Morrison did a update, and if you look at it, it's basically the same chair. The spreaders are gone. The upholstery is a little cleaner, a little smoother. It's basically less design, more neutral, and designed for the next 75 years.
And, this concept of maintaining those true norths really came into play when you got to this point where you started to collaborate.
Okay.
So now talk about it.
Now I can talk about it. So Stark, as a designer, he is very experienced, and he knows exactly what he wants to do in a design. So working with Stark exposed us to the world of design, exposed us to a world where it was different than a government contract supplier. It was now a design furniture supplier. And so this is a big pivot for a company that had just done one thing.
Yeah. And what happens here is it starts to really open up the door for other collaborations. So, Emeco starts to kind of become known for these big collaborations. The question is, how do you maintain those true north? How do you know that you're working with people who are on board for durability, waste materials, and really functioning design?
Right. So that's always a big concern and always important to do, to maintain what you believe in. So Frank Gehry, unlike a Philippe Stark, Frank Gehry is a very wildly creative person that wants to do something nobody's ever done before. And then on the other photo, it's Jasper Morrison, who's very precise, who just does what's necessary, nothing, no frills, complete opposites. So how does a company maintain a integrity and maintain your values? And what we've done at Emeco is we've built a great team. So anytime we work with an outside designer who brings in new ideas, new thinking, new methods, we surround that person with an internal team of people who are really good at what they do. And with that internal team, we're able to make sure that all the things that we believe in are accomplished.
And it's interesting too, because I think it's a little bit self-selecting. You don't get people who are trying to do something really wildly not Emeco that are proposing things for the most part.
For the most part. And really, for us, you kind of know when we're going the right direction. It just seems like it fits better. Certainly, we've begun projects that we all look at each other in a room and we just say, this just isn't working.
Yeah.
And we just won't continue on it. So it has to really fit our ethos to continue.
And this is interesting because that brings us to kind of like the material development side of Emeco. So, this starts kind of starts way back at the beginning with the recycled aluminum, and now you're evolving into recycled plastic, which started years ago. So talk a little bit about the Coke project.
Well, this project, when they approached us, Coca-Cola, and what they wanted to do, initially, I was very apprehensive because I didn't want to do something that was just a branding exercise. We're a serious company. We want to make products that last. And really, once I understood that, hey, we can have impact with other scrap materials, with other waste material, with materials that are bigger problems today than they've ever been. And so this is a great project, and we worked on it for about 4 years to be able to upcycle the plastic to make something structurally strong like this chair. And each of the chairs take at least 111 bottles, so we call it the 111 chair.
Yeah, and when did you start this project?
We started in 2006. We launched it in 2010.
So in 2006, though, the whole perception of plastic is starting to become pretty negative. So how do you decide to tackle plastic as a project?
Yeah, well, again, this is a huge pivot for us because, our concern was the feeling that people would have is, a negative feeling towards plastic. We wanted to make sure people understood, here's a waste plastic that we could take and make into something that would last. So keep the plastic bottles from going into the ocean, going into the landfill, and use it into a product that was usable, that was worthy.
Yeah, making sure that you kind of stick with that. Does this fit into the true north? Yes, because we're using this plastic that would otherwise be thrown away. We're still maintaining that durability, and we're still maintaining that design of something you will want to keep for a long time.
And when you say design in this particular project, it was really clear. It was the design of the material. The chair was our original Navy chair, and we selected it because we didn't want it to be about the design of the chair. We wanted it to be about the design of the material.
Yeah. So then from there, though, you start to work on other projects that really begin to evolve where that material goes. So talk about what happens with material from there.
So what's interesting about Emeco is we're in our manufacturing process. We always want to continue to improve the material so we have less flaws, so that the chairs perform better. And over the years from 2006, we continued to work on this recycled PET material until we finally got it to a point where we could take the material, make a chair, grind that chair up, and make a new chair from that same chair, a chair to a chair, really fully circular. That's the ultimate goal. If we can get materials to be able to reuse forever, that's what we want to do. That's what we strive for. So this gave us the opportunity to take the material, and at this point we approached some people we knew well, Barberoscopy, and talked to them about the idea of doing a circular chair.
But I think the interesting thing for Emeco here is that circularity is down the road because durability comes first as the true north.
Right.
Yes, we want a circular chair, but to us, it's even more important to have something that will last, that you will love, that exists for a long time and doesn't break.
Exactly.
What's the point of having something circular if the energy to recycle it is going to be really high?
Right.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and starting to kind of evolve what Emeco True North means in terms of, we want something environmental. Now that means not only durable, recycled material, but also circular.
Right.
Also is interesting the way that the materials have evolved between products. So,
right.
Like our recycled polypropylene, for example.
Right.
How did this one start?
Yeah, so this is basically the same material that we developed for Stark for the broom chair. And Jasper Morrison liked the material and wanted to use it for the Alfie chair. So that's where it started. So the idea is the same thing, where we take the recycled PET and work on it, make the material, improve it consistently for years and years. This is another example, taking a material, and reusing it and using it and figuring out how to make it better over time.
Yeah, and I think when Emeco started doing this and started working on improving materials, it seemed like it was something for the plastic, like how do we use waste material and improve it? But really, you'd been doing this with the aluminum forever, whether it was working with Stark on learning how to polish the chairs. There's always this concept at Emeco that I think is kind of a hidden true north. That's how do we improve the way we manufacture? How do we improve what we can do in our toolkit for the material?
Right, absolutely. So when we're working on just aluminum chairs and we go through all the steps in the process, the basic steps have stayed the same. Everything we believe in stays the same, but we have now new equipment, new machines, bending machines that are run by computers that allow us to go faster, to have more accuracy. So as technology evolves, we employ that to a certain extent.
Yeah, and I think that brings us pretty nicely to this one. This is a screenshot from a launch we did actually during COVID of our ZA stool, which was a collaboration with Naoto Fukasawa. And a lot of his work is super normal. Right. So how does that relate to the Emeco True North?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this chair, as Noto mentions, it looks like something that could have been in the family, in the collection from the very beginning. It looks like an Emeco piece, even though it was just recently designed. And also, again, working with the aluminum we know so well, yet at the same time, trying new ways to make things that we had never done before. In this case, aluminum spinning we hadn't done before. So we had to figure it out, learn how to do it, and apply it.
Yeah, and I think actually there's a link that will go in the chat box to the YouTube. And one thing I'd recommend looking at is the process for making ZA, because a lot of it is actually very Emeco. And then we had this whole new process with aluminum spinning, which for those of you who don't know, it goes on basically a lathe that spins the mold and you roll the sheet around the mold to make this shape. And at Emeco, we'd never really done a round shape. So they didn't know how to make a round shape. Attaching the legs to the top cap was its own process, trying to make that a smooth radii, and then brushing it, we'd never done before. So it included attaching the chair actually to a pottery wheel to be able to radially brush the product. So, it's exactly what Greg's talking about, how we begin to evolve our own abilities within the materials, right, including aluminum, which is 80 years into it for us.
And so this chair goes through all the same processes, and it's annealed and heat treated and hand brushed and anodized. And when you're done, it's again a chair that will last 150 years. But in appearance, it looks so simple.
Yeah.
But really, when you see the manufacturing, the process, there's a lot to this stool.
Yeah, and it's still embodying that not only durability will last 150 years, but because of the functional design of it, you'll want to keep it for.
Yeah, and it's so simple in appearance, it will never go out of style.
Yeah. So then the next thing that begins to get included in the True North is this concept of like the data behind the environmentalism.
Right. So what we did is we started measuring our carbon footprint mainly for ourselves, so we can see how are we doing? How does this material compare to other materials? What shall we do when we develop a new product? Because most of the time we really start with the material on our product.
Yeah. So I think for Emeco, it didn't used to be about the numbers behind it. And now that more processes have evolved in the past, 20 years to be able to really quantify impact, that's become part of the toolkit of the True North. How do we assess what we're doing? Is it on the right page numerically with the rest of things? And how do we improve from there?
Right. It's so great. It's like this ZA, I believe, isn't our carbon footprint.
It's like the lowest of any product we have.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just great for us to know we're going on the right path. We're doing what we believe. We're doing something in accordance with our values, with our true north.
Yeah. So then what do you think is the next step for Emeco from here?
Ooh, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we're locked into any particular direction, but I do know we'll stick with our same values, we'll stick with our true north, and if it fits everything we believe in, we'll give it a shot.
Yeah. Amazing. I mean, I think I might have torpedoed some of your stories this time around. For right now, that's, we just wanted to run through what kept us on the right path and, what drives Emeco. And it seems like, to wrap it up, it's still durability. It's always going to be using waste material, and it's making a product that will work and you will love for a lifetime.
Right. And as the title of the presentation, sticking with our true north, something we believe in, something that we value, that's where our products will always be.
Amazing.
So we're ready for any questions.
Excellent. Thank you both very much. We'll jump in right away with an easy one. But just out of curiosity for both of you, what's it like working as a father and daughter duo in all aspects of it?
When I was thinking of joining Emeco 5 years ago, we had a lot of talks, and we talked a lot with Alev, who's the president and CEO. And we said, let's outline this formally. I won't be working with Gregg on a daily basis. We're going to keep things separate. And I thought, this could be really tough. We might fight. Turns out everything we planned was wrong. And we talk every day about work and about life. And it's honestly, it's so great when going back to the true north, we know we're on the same page because he's given me these values to grow up with. Brainwashed is another word, but it's been really nice to just know in any conversation, you're starting off on the same baseline.
I concur with Jay, and for me, if anybody's thinking about working in a family business, I can't think of anything better. I love working with her. It's fun. She adds a lot to the company. Her knowledge and her education in sustainability and carbon footprinting. She does all of our carbon footprinting. She's heading up our sustainability. So she adds a lot. She's a pleasure to work with. And I don't think we've ever been closer in our whole life. So it's something that I'm really enjoying.
That's really kind. Also, though, it was really fun to do Emeco House, which we didn't talk about in the presentation, but we opened about a year ago our design studio in Venice, and the whole thing was still around the same true north, but every Thursday, and to this day, he'll pick me up between 5:30 and 5:45 in the morning. We go surf, we eat croissants, and then we would go work on the Emeco House. And now we don't, the Emeco House is finished, so we don't have that as much, but what a blessing to make work part of life.
Right. It was great.
Yeah, that was a nice answer though.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna combine two here. But as far as choosing designers and collaborators, what's the process like? Do you typically find designers, or do they find you? And in that same vein, are you collaborating with any designers that you've maybe worked with in the past again in the future? Do you see any partnerships coming back?
Initially it was like I just accidentally ran into Stark, and he always wanted to design a chair for us, and that was just how it worked. And once we did the project with Stark, it just sort of opened the doors, and we've gotten a lot of people that have come to us. Frank Gehry had ordered like 125 Emeco Hudson rolling office chairs for his large studio, and I met him at his studio, and we talked, and he wanted to do a chair. So there hasn't been a lot of initially there wasn't a lot of strategy behind who we work with, but as we go and as we work and as we know what keeps our guys busy is production, and we need to do more than one-off. So we try to do things that have some kind of mass appeal, and we found certain designers really know the Emeco ethos and are really spot on with what we need. So someone like a Jasper Morrison, he's just, that super normal exhibition that I saw that he had done with Fukasawa. I mean, their direction and their abilities really fit Emeco quite well.
Yeah, and I would say once we've done one project, we get to know each other really well, and the teams get to know each other. And, there's no one we've worked with that we haven't really enjoyed working with, and they're all so different that once you kind of hit that working rhythm, it's so fun to do a second project because then you already know each other.
Right.
It's
exactly.
like working with friends.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. We enjoy working with people that we enjoy.
Yeah.
So if they're friends and we get along and we truly have a relationship that's more than just the project, that always makes it more fun.
Yeah.
Would you mind, since it's come up a couple times, would you mind speaking a little bit about Emeco House and just exploring that a little further?
Well, Emeco House was something that way back I was in Tokyo, and I saw a little Japanese structure, and I always thought, boy, that'd be so cool to have a place that could be kind of a studio, a showroom, a place I could stay when I travel here. And as I traveled to different places, whether it was Paris or London, I always felt like it, until one day I sat in on one of Jaye's classes, Designing Your Life at Stanford, and they said, quit dreaming and start prototyping. And it just hit me, because that's all I do is I prototype. And that's when I was visiting Jaye one time in Venice Beach and walking down Abbot Kinney, and I walked into a realtor's office, and they happened to have that exact same kind of structure that I was looking for. It was old and dilapidated, but in the right area, a live work area. And that's what we saw. And then from there, we approached it kind of like a chair. We wanted it to be something, all materials we chose, we wanted it to last a long time. We wanted them to be non-toxic. We wanted to be a place that people could be comfortable and healthy to go to.
Yeah. And we started this actually before I even was at Emeco. So we started it 6 years ago, working on trying to do minimal touch, but still making it really special, and doing like no finishes, no paints, just how simple can you make this space? And now it feels really nice to be in. And if anyone's ever in LA, you can reach out. We can give you a tour of Emeco House.
Right.
Great. You have previously spoken about Emeco as a pioneer in limiting the market for knockoff products. Can you discuss a little bit about your process for that?
Yeah, I mean, the process is normally we let someone know who inadvertently is copying, and that we have a trademark or trade dress on a particular product. But if it's a case where they've not only copied the look of a product, but the name of the product and the history of the product, and it's very clear that they are being aggressively trying to copy everything, then we address it with lawyers.
And we manufacture in the US. So what we've done before is gone and done trainings actually with the port of LA, and you've done Georgia too, Savannah.
Yeah.
And we can teach these customs officers, if you see an Emeco chair coming into the port, it is not an Emeco chair. We manufacture this in the US, it doesn't make sense. So, and I think actually there's a lot of pride around American design in that sense of protecting these things that have been developed. And it's not just protecting how it looks, but really there's so much work into making this chair super durable that a knockoff is diluting of that image. And it's probably just definitely not made as well, which is unhelpful.
Yeah, and one of the things it's awful is if you go to a restaurant or airport or somewhere and you see a knockoff chair and they're cracking and the legs are bending and people think they're Emeco. So not only did we not get the sale, but we also lose our reputation at the same time because it looks like our chairs aren't holding up.
Mhm.
In a similar-ish vein, I guess, you in the previous session, we spoke a little bit about failures of products, and I'm wondering, has Emeco ever failed in a product that you've created, and if so, what did you learn from that experience?
Our failures are in the development, and that's why it takes us, anywhere from the shortest period of time to develop a product, 2 years up to 5 years. And we do really extensive testing at each step of the process. So by the time we launch a project, we know if it's going to be a strong, durable product because we've tested all along. So that's one thing, the strength of a product. But the other thing is whether a product is going to be successful in the marketplace could be something else. So we did a project with Frank Gehry called, Superlight, and it doesn't sell very well because it's a very unique, precarious kind of chair to sit in because it moves when you sit down. So, but from a product standpoint, we really know and understand what we're putting out in the market.
I think the other thing is when something is out there, it's been extensively tested and we know how to improve it. And then we keep trying to improve it. Or if we find out something down the road, like figure out that we can actually make this material use more recycled content and we can reduce the weight of it and reduce the amount needed, I think those are things that we continuously pursue. It's not just pushed out into the world and left there.
Yeah, and I think probably when we first worked with the recycled PET, I had the feeling that blemishes and anything that was imperfect would be acceptable because it was from recycled material. But what I found out was people expected a chair not to have color blemishes, not to have, they didn't want to see those things. So that was a learning experience. And that's part of the reason why we continue to develop that material so that we can get it looking better and better using the recycled materials.
You mentioned that the Frank Gehry chair, you knew that it wasn't going to sell well, but that it was still a valuable product to develop. How do you measure the success of products? Is it simply in sales, or is there other things that you find important, like the carbon or the materials? Is it different for each product?
Yeah, so starting off with when we first did the chair with Frank Gehry, Superlight, we really had no idea how much would sell or wouldn't sell. So we didn't go into it for that. And really the reason to work with Frank Gehry was the knowledge and the ability to work with one of the greatest thinkers in architecture of our time, and to be able to understand how he approaches a project, how he works on a project, the learning and what we had to do, the learning our craftsmen had to do to learn how to make a chair and make the aluminum flex. So part of the reason we want to work with thinkers of that kind is they always challenge us, and we as a company learn how to do things that we never knew how to do before.
Mhm.
Awesome. Just a couple more questions. What advice do you have for students? You mentioned that kind of the next steps for Emeco and pursuing this path of sustainability and the circular products. What advice do you have for a student who might be entering, starting to work at a firm soon, that so that they can have an impact on sustainable design and keep pushing the needle from the bottom up?
I think it's becoming more and more important. And so it's easier to get these things through. Whereas maybe 10 years ago, if you pitched a recycled material, it was a no-go. But now you can, if you can prove its worth, I think that's really beneficial. You know, like look into the cost of it, make sure that you're not trying to pitch something that's going to be an insane amount more expensive, because unfortunately, that's just never going to get through most firms. I would say you also need to prove out strength, look into the supply chain, see if you can find a local supply of that waste material. And then as much as you can go see that material, the better, you know, see it being manufactured, even if you go to a recycling center, I think that gives you a lot of like a bigger knowledge base to speak to why that material should be used. And then also the data exists. If you can go do a quick back of the envelope to show the carbon footprint benefit, I think the more information you have to back the decision, the better.
And just to build on what Jay is saying, the more you become an expert in the material, the more you can go to any company, because there's so many companies that need help in this area, and help guide them and help them understand how they can use a material and take it out of the waste stream and make it into something that will last.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. How is furniture design different than traditional industrial design? And are there different design processes or strategies that you use for developing concepts?
Oh, that's interesting. I come from an engineering background, so I don't know quite as much about the regular industrial design process, but I would say furniture is very interesting because it is that overlap of engineering and design. It has to function, is the base. You know, like if you can't sit in the chair, why make the chair? So I think there's something interesting there. That's this intersection of engineering and design where you're keeping in mind the function while you keep in mind what that output looks like.
Right. And I think in, you know, that even that word design, it implies to so many people style. And to us, it's the design of the material. It's building something strong. And I just think sometimes things are categorized and there certain words are used that really don't help to communicate the idea. In any kind of design, whatever it is, things should be done that work, that are usable, that are useful. So people want to take care of it and keep them. Mm-hmm. in any kind of design.
Mm-hmm.
Besides sustainability, what's another global challenge that you think designers and the design industry should be helping to solve?
You know, it's interesting. I think you talked about it today. We had our team call this morning with Emeco, and you brought up the concept that 10 years ago, you used to go to a grocery store. There was one type of hot sauce. You go to a grocery store now, there's 30 types of hot sauce. How do you become something that's wanted by a consumer and trusted, and it's worthwhile to manufacture? How do you make sure that you are earning your spot on that already crowded shelf?
Right. I mean, there's too much stuff in the world, and we have to, I think, as a designer, you need to come up with something that deserves to exist. You need to do something that's better than anything else that is available. A Me Too product in today's world, there's just no space for it.
Yeah, I think with increased globalization, we have access to so much in the world, and you have to compete against so much. And probably what you're making already exists. How do you make sure that what you're making earns that space in the marketplace?
And the last question for now, what is something from your experience working at Emeco and just in general, what's some advice that you would give to students that about entering the design industry that you might not learn in school?
You know, when we give talks, one of the things we always say, and I think is very true, is visit as many factories as you can. And like Jaye has done, I mean, get your hands dirty, do welding, work with the tools. It will help your thinking and how things work. I mean, it just how that material works. And Emeco had a gentleman, Dennis, that had worked, he's probably 75 at the time. And anytime we had a really tough problem to solve, like bending an arm for this project we did with the Torasatsas with a real severe bend without cracking the aluminum, he could look at the aluminum and could tell you because he knew the material so well. So really get your hands dirty, get involved, go to factories, work in one if you can.
Yeah, I'd agree completely.
All right, we have one last question before we wrap up. Do you, you've done collaborations with other designers, but do you foresee any working with other manufacturers or purchasing other manufacturers to help increase your capabilities or your knowledge, or is this something that you're more exploring, for yourself?
We get approached and we really take it very seriously who we work with, and only because we want to protect our reputation. We don't want to work with anyone that doesn't have the same values as us. So we're gonna really limit what we do. Our desire isn't to produce more. Our desire is to produce better. So we try to work on 1 or 2 projects at a time, and we'll only launch 1 product a year. And again, that slow approach allows us to really focus, really make sure we're producing something that earns a spot in the world.
All right. Well, Jaye, Gregg, thank you both very much for your time today. We certainly appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who attended.